Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Jess asked me to come in and talk about what I do for writing and how it's relevant. So, quick thing on my background. So, I'm a computer scientist. My degree is in engineering. I got my degree and went straight into the CIA. It was my first job out of college. So started out in the intelligence community and kind of have been in and around either the intel community or the Department of Defense for more or less the last 20 years. So I think when I went to school and studied computer science, you don't really think of using writing all that much. You're learning how to program, you're learning math, that kind of stuff. It's probably 50 to 60% of what I do these days. Even in the beginning, when I first started at the agency, a lot of what you do is just communicating with other people and having to write either emails or cables or user guides or reports or analysis, and all of that comes up over and over. So it was much more focused on technical writing. But even there, working a technical job, it's a huge component of what I had to do. So these days, I do a lot of work for Department of Defense, and we kind of have the same thing where you have to write proposals to get funding. And you're really trying to, how do I convey an idea quickly? And so a lot of the writing you do is the saying that I learned from one of my mentors, where he talked about you don't think in order to write, you write in order to think. And the idea is sometimes you just start writing to get your ideas out on paper in order to force you to organize things. A lot of the stuff I work on, and you probably see this in your own, and the stuff that you have to read, you really only have 1 paragraph to 2 paragraphs to draw someone in. It's really a big thing about, why should I care about this? I don't know if you've been assigned some readings, definitely in another class, not this one, where you start reading it and you get 1 to 2 pages in and you're like, why am I even doing this? Who cares? Can they please get to the point? Everything within DoD world particularly, it's completely about understanding your audience and getting to, you know, how is this, how is this going to change my life? Why should I fund this? Why should I give these people money? Your goal is not to sound smart or talk over the heads of the person that is reading it, but your goal is just to be understood. And so, yeah, we do a lot of focus on making things as tight as possible, condensed, but yet easy to read, trying to get your point across quickly. And then there are some subpoints in the audience, especially when you're in the position of asking for money, where you try to say, here's how I'm going to make your life easier. Here's how I'm going to help you get promoted. If you're dealing with a contract officer or someone, it's not just, is my idea sound, but how does my idea help you personally? And then part of that is understanding the process by which a lot of this stuff gets evaluated. Same thing as getting your stuff graded. They have an evaluation where at the end of it where they decide whether or not they're going to fund it, is structuring things in such a way that, what parts can I skip? You're going to give a lot of information, especially in a technical format where it has different sections, but how can I make this so that I don't really have to read it? Because I have to read a lot of these proposals. No one sits down and reads a book on how to use Microsoft Word. They just start using it and then they jump into the help whenever they actually need something. A lot of the technical work I do, be it user guides, proposals, that kind of stuff, it's very much structured. It's kind of weird to say, but it's structured for people who aren't going to read it, but then, or aren't going to read it cover to cover or the way you think they are, but then are going to reference it. So thinking out at how you structure things beforehand is also a huge part of what the technical work I do on. We might generate all the content and then spend 2 or 3 days just figuring out, okay, what sections should we have? How should they be organized? What's the natural flow from one to the other? And what are the parts where if someone is just using a checklist to grade this, that I make it obvious that, I've checked all of the boxes that they have in their mind in order to get funding on it.
Could you talk a little bit about what your typical reader is like?
Sure. So that varies. So in the proposal world, you have readers that you have some people that are very technical. There are people that are experts in their fields. You have people that are just, there for looking at the finance side of things. Like, how does this fit into everything else that we're funding? Within other things I've worked on, so I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, I wrote a book called Network Attacks and Exploitation. And that was about the strategy behind building a program to hack other countries. And so the audience with that was more high level, like people who don't necessarily know or understand the technology, but have to do kind of strategic thinking and fit it into a framework of other options that they may have. So you may be writing things where you have more knowledge than your audience. And in fact, more often than not, you're going to have more knowledge than your audience because you're the one doing the writing. And so how to phrase things and structure things in a way that anyone can pick it up is probably a big challenge. So we deal with that all of the time on the contract side of things, where you have contract officers who aren't technical specialists, but ultimately they're the ones who decide whether or not you're going to move forward with a particular project. On the user side, then you're just dealing with, everyday users. I have writing a user guide, I'm writing an installation guide. That's more just kind of standard instruction writing. You've probably, if any of you have tried to assemble furniture, you can appreciate the difference between having good instructions and terrible instructions. Um, you add in as many diagrams and make it as pretty as you can. Makes things go a little bit smoother.
Could you talk a little bit about what your writing process is like? Oh,
writing process. I tend to start with just stream of consciousness. Just writing as much content as possible. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, it's not grammatically correct, and just getting ideas out onto, getting started is often just the hardest part, and just filling it, almost going for volume. And then going back through that and then like cutting out, okay, I think this is a good idea, and almost using it as like an organization, just to get to the point where I use kind of the stream of consciousness to get to the point where I have an outline.
okay.
And then the outline then gets filled in. Oh, this is something, and let me rearrange where this goes, and I need to make this point at the beginning. I tend to write the intro and the conclusion last after an outline, if that makes sense, but before the paper. So you get your idea of here's how it's going to be structured. Here's the key points I want to make. And my intro will just be, here's the 4 points that I want to make, and just in list form, and then go work on the rest of what I'm writing. And then I'll go back to that and be like, okay, now that I make the points that I wanted to, and let me turn this into prose that people would understand.
Okay, we have 5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for Matt? Does anybody have any work-related questions? I know some of you are in criminal justice. Alodia, I thought, are you a computer science major?
Yeah, I'm a computer science major.
Did you have any questions like that, since Matt actually majored in computer science?
No, not particularly.
Okay.
So the one thing that I think I didn't appreciate as much in school is how much communication is required. Like, you work on programming projects and you're with a team of 2, and it's really easy because it's just the 2 of you and you're working together on something. Once you get to bigger teams of 4 and 5 people, some of the overhead that gets involved with just figuring out, the path forward before you even go off and code stuff. I'm happy to talk about the DoD if anyone cares about that. I mean, these days I'm doing work with the Air Force mostly.
Does anybody have a question about working with DoD?
Previous life. Done some policy work, which is new to me, but I've been doing that the past year, of trying to convince some of our leadership to take certain actions. And that's always very difficult when you have people that frankly barely know how to turn on a computer, and they're the ones who are making decisions that that impact the rest of us, especially in the technology field.
What kind of, are you doing a lot of writing when you work on policy?
Yeah, yes. So you start with conversations, and then almost always they want you to follow up with probably 1 to 2 pages of something, just as a minimum to start.
What has been one of the most interesting things that you've written about recently?
I've been working on a project to try to define what does defend forward mean for the US. So right now, the US military has come out with this new idea of we are going to defend forward, meaning we are willing to actively go hack other countries publicly. And that's kind of a shift. And whether or not they're doing it before, now they're publicly acknowledging that they're willing to do it. So they call that defending forward. And so that's a great slogan, but now figuring out what is it that we actually need to go do? How do we build up a program to be able to do that? You know, what are the strategy and the tactics behind doing that? Honestly, that's what I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months.
Does anybody have any questions about what hacking is? You all understand what hacking is by the US government? Does everyone agree that the US government should publicly be hacking other countries?
By publicly, do you mean like saying publicly that they're going to do it?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
yeah, or taking credit for it afterwards. Cyber Command just did something in the news the other day where they took down a botnet, or there were devices out in the world and they're like, yeah, we just went and took it over and shut it down.
I mean, I guess it depends on the circumstance, but putting it out publicly, in my opinion, is basically like inviting other people to like do the same thing, if that makes any sense at all.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, well, we're doing this, well, then a lot of other people can do it, and then it just turns into a big mess.
Yeah, that actually within the policy circles, they call that the fear of escalation, right? You know, I throw a stone and they throw a stone back, and then I fire a gun and they fire a gun back, and pretty soon, you know, it just escalates beyond. And how do you not escalate? At the same time, they're hacking the crap out of us, so that's kind of the military's viewpoint of, well, the computer security world I find interesting because, you know, I'm not worried about someone breaking into my house. And by someone, I mean, I'm not worried about a foreign military coming invading my house. You know, if they tried to, they could, and they would be successful. But we have all these layers in place, like there's the local police that, you know, I have locks on my doors to start out with. Then there's the local police. Then there's the US military. And there's all these functions of either your own security or government that stand in between you and a foreign country coming and stealing stuff out of your house. In the computer world, none of that exists. You know, you are responsible for your computer, whether or not it's China coming after it. Your university is responsible for their network with another country coming after it. So there's no layer of government that is there helping to protect those resources. And it's a really hard question because you deal with, you know, as Americans, we don't trust our government inherently. We don't want you don't want the US government running your university's network and having access to your personal data. That's not, you know, that's against American values. At the same point, how does the government help protect your university's network? Or is it its job at all? And that's something they're wrestling with. Does the military have a role in that? Well, they have a role in protecting you physically. Everyone agrees with that. But what is the role of government to protect the virtual resources? And to tie it back to writing, like people are writing entire books on just this kind of topic, trying to figure that out. Where is the line between, you know, I don't want the government reading my email, but, you know, I also don't want my computer hacked by other people. So how do you sort that out?
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for your visit today. It's
Any
technical.
last questions?
Yeah, any last questions, guys?
Can you leave your email for future questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send it to Jessica.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'll see all of you on Thursday at 3 o'clock. Those of you in the green class, please email me later today or upload your assignment to Canvas. I'll put that up tonight. And have a great rest of the day. Okay? All right. Bye, Matt. Thank you.
Matt,
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
thank you.